evening. I will try and make this exciting as I possibly can, talking about business planning, annual planning, the challenges that we faced over the past couple of years, and certainly the challenges that are presented to us within CP7. So, can you all see my slides? Fantastic. Thank you for the thumbs up. So, challenge CP7. So if we rewind the clock back to 2020, I'd not long started in Ian's team as his engineer and assurance manager, and I was a track maintenance engineer over in Saltley, where I'd been there for a challenging 6 years. And I moved into Ian's team, so I was taking quite a busy sort of section of Saltley, but being exposed on a national scale within Ian's team. And one of the first challenges that was presented to us was from the ORI, in that through CP6 they were not very happy at all with how maintenance had been tracking their planned versus actuals. Now, this is a national picture. Obviously, there was spots of people around the country that were doing it quite well, but by and large, for the most part, the general consensus from the ORR was that actually we weren't very good at telling them and the DFT of all this money that we'd been given to us by the taxpayer, the good old Great British taxpayer. We couldn't really tell people what we'd spent it on. We had an idea, we knew where some of it went and where, and we were pretty good with our renewals, but mainly in maintenance, we weren't very good at telling the regulator and the DFT exactly, where we'd spent this taxpayers' money. So they were taking a very keen interest. And there was some quite heated discussions on one Friday evening between me and one of the finance directors of Network Rail and ORR to try and beg for a stay of execution, because they were very keen to put us on some kind of grim regulator escalator, as they do, threatening us with all sorts of stuff. And we didn't want that. We wanted to be better in CP7. We needed to be better in CP7, and we wanted to sort of take that forward. So as we then moved through the end of CP6, and we started to get ourselves ready for CP7, with getting maintenance ready, with a statement of funds allocated, and to try and define that maintenance plan, we were met with quite a challenging financial fiscal situation that was going to hit us in CP7. So with obviously COVID that had happened between 2020 and 2022, we saw passenger numbers plummet on the railways, which was fine if you were in one of those lucky jobs that got to use the train because you were on a carriage all by yourself. But where it came to the general sort of consensus of where government should put money, they were slightly worried. So we were presented with quite a challenging fiscal situation going into CP7, and there was some quite tough questions being asked of us by DFT to have a look at what certain scenarios would look like in terms of whether taps of money were turned off, and what that would mean for the asset, and what that would mean for maintenance and renewals. And we were looking at it really quite worried. We knew that through CP7 we were going to be facing a reduction in renewals. And we all know that as we turn off the tap that is renewals, what has to bridge the gap in order to provide safety and performance is maintenance. So as we do less renewals, we have to do more maintenance, and we needed to understand what that looked like, and we needed to understand how that played out across the network. So there was quite a lot of scenarios that were put forward, quite a lot of analysis done to try and project the impacts of reducing renewals and what that would look like on maintenance. But in the meantime, Ian and I were getting in and amongst various delivery units to try to get them to shift from this culture of not looking at their volumes and not really tracking those volumes, and to bringing them into a place where they were building their plans from a bottom-up perspective, and they understood fully what it meant to take that delivery unit through a fiscally constrained control period that is CP7. And with that challenge was the understanding that quite a lot of the DUs, there wasn't really a written down formula for how that was to be done, but there's not an instruction pamphlet that you can pick up that tells you how to build an ABP, what good plan versus actuals looks like, what a good strategy looks like, and how that can play out in your maintenance world, and what we need to look at. So we were really sort of starting from first base principles, because none of this has really been written down, and quite a few of the DUs actually went through this strange sort of culture change of forgetting why we do annual planning. So why do we do annual planning? Well, we're accountable to the ORR and DFT for our plan. So that straight away we need to demonstrate to the ORR and certainly to the DFT where we're spending billions of pounds of taxpayers' money. That's a fundamental of the world we live in at the moment. We're required to track plan versus actuals. We need to know that when we don't do something, like we don't do the stone blowing on that junction that's hitting us in performance, we need to know the impacts of that, what that means, and whether we can accept those impacts, or whether we've got to replan it in. So there has to be this give and take, and this is required and backed up in our standards in MTC. Sorry, somebody's not on mute. Thank you. These are required by our standards as well as in MTC 001 Module 5 and 175. So there's a requirement there in our governance that we do. We have an ABP, we have an annual plan, and as we do work, we track what we do, and then we analyze that through the period to try and reforecast or move things around. It allows, and pretty much key to this room really. It allows good asset management oversight as well. When we understand what we're not doing within a control period from a maintenance perspective, that allows us to then predict, is that going to have a detrimental effect? Do we need to renew it? Can we hold off on the renewal in order to up our maintenance figures on a certain asset and to sweat it further out into into another control period? Or do we need to do something different? So it allows that asset management oversight and allows us to have those conversations. Obviously, it improves asset condition as well. When we know what we're doing in a certain place to a certain part of the asset, we know that we know that we can sort of predict and prevent, and we can shift allocations of resources around our patches. It can also show market-led thinking. So one of the challenges for CP7 is actually to adopt a market-led thinking approach to the asset, so that we don't treat all of the asset the same all of the time, that we actually understand the needs and requirements of our customer and develop a maintenance plan around those needs and requirements. So there's no point tamping the sidings road that sees a train once every 6 months at the behest of tamping the West Coast main line. That's probably the busiest line in the country, with commuters travelling up and down between London and some of the big cities up and down the West Coast main line. So it's about adopting that and understanding where we can bring levels down in order to increase spend elsewhere on the needs and requirements of our customers. And finally as well, what is quite key and that we haven't seen, if I'm going to be brutally honest, is it aids us in challenging our engineering access statement. So where we've seen DUs sit with the same access statement, engineering access statement, to track year after year after year, an annual plan that's set 3 years out helps those engineers to go to the train operating companies and the freight operating companies and say, no, my annual plan is telling me that I need more access on this line. I can give up a little bit of access on this line because I'm doing less there. But actually, on this bit of line here, I need more access to there, and my annual plan is telling me that. So if you don't give me enough access, I can't do this work that's allocated through my annual plan, and that's going to have a detrimental effect on your service, the customer, and what we can offer you as Network Rail. So it's really keen to sort of get that across, that building these longer term maintenance annual plans means that we can challenge the train operating companies to demonstrate what we need and where. So just a quick roundup of what's in the standards with regards to annual planning, from our new standard, new standard MTC 001 to PL 0175 in module 2. So 2 amber clauses clearly state out in those standards that we're to have an annual plan. So it was worrying when we saw certain DUs with not really adhering to those standards as much as they probably should. And then this brings me to this side. So basically, towards the end of CP6, as I mentioned before, ORR were taking a very keen interest in it. Ian and I were quite well aware that this was going to be coming in CP7, and true to form, ORR laid out their 3 lanes of assurance, which were their priorities for CP7. And one of those 3 main priorities, the whole of ORR for CP7, was maintenance volumes and how we track those and those inputs into what they deem as inputs into the infrastructure. So they put that out there very clear as day to night. This is what we're looking at in CP7. So just be aware of what's coming. So that has meant we've had some sort of difficult conversations with ORR, and we're trying to navigate them into the right place, because we don't think that we want to work with them. We obviously we can't just stave them away. We want to work with them. We want to welcome them in. A separate set of eyes is always good. But what we're trying to do is sort of negotiate where they look. We want to keep them away from going into a delivery unit and bothering busy day-to-day engineers and people like that. We want to manage their expectations through giving them the data that we've already got in order for them to make an educated decision. So that led us to start trying to change the culture within what was already set out in CP6 with maintenance as a whole. And what we saw was a reluctance to come forward with a bottom-up plan. They being the delivery units, started to look at the whole process as being very finance-led, and that they would just put up with what finance handed to them, essentially. Wasn't the case. Very frustrating for us to try and get in and to change that culture, to bring the DUs on with helping them to understand that if you build a bottom-up plan, if you take a look at what you need, I sort of use the analogy of McDonald's. McDonald's needs to know on a daily basis how many burgers it needs to have in stock in order to give the customer what it wants. And I see that as the same way with maintenance and ABP. We need to understand how many miles of track we need to tamp in order to give the customer what they want, which is a smooth ride between Tamworth and Birmingham New Street. That's what the customer wants. So what do we do in order to maintain a safe, compliant, and a well-performing railway? So we needed to put that in place with engineers. And you need to say to people, look, you need to demonstrate and build a bottom-up plan so that you know what you need, and you can go to finance and say, we need this. And if you say we can't have this, that's fine, but please tell me what I need to cut out of my plan in order for me to be okay. So that there needs to be that tripartite agreement around the room between asset management, senior DU leads, and finance to come to an agreement around what could be delivered and what had to be delivered. We wanted a 3-year rolling plan installed into Ellipse so that we could challenge that engineering access statement. We also wanted to avoid the cliff edge drop off that was CP6 going into CP7. so that effectively what we had were DUs that their plans run out at the end of CP6 and they were going from scratch to build for CP7. We don't want that going from CP7 into CP8. What we want is DUs to understand what they need in the first 2 years of the control period through a 3-year rolling plan. And that means that the transition from control period to control period through maintenance is done a lot smoother rather than this cliff edge drop off. We also want to engage with delivery units to help them improve their budget and drive improvements to service affecting failures, which impacts the customer directly, backlog and compliance improvements, and drive key messaging into delivery units and routes that maintenance is more important now than ever. As we reduce renewals and we start to sweat the asset, maintenance is what's going to keep that train running from A to B on a daily basis. So when we took a look at the current state of the annual plan upload, we found there was gaps in various delivery units. So now what we're doing is we're running a report every period, and we're using that to assure the DUs against that, so that we know that the delivery units, as they move from period to period and quarter to quarter, they're doing those annual plan reviews, they're uploading annual plans, they're using this data to challenge engineering access statements. They're also tracking their spends and what they're doing and what they're not doing. We also run reports to show us exactly where DUs aren't even uploading anything past the core ABP volume. So if you take a look at how we build annual plans, we have ABP, which sits at the common 650 jobs in maintenance, and then we have the wider annual plan that encompasses everything that delivery unit does from a maintenance perspective. And we found that there was quite a few DUs that were just sitting with the basic requirements of uploading an ABP. So we challenged them to try and shift that culture along in order to get them to be better. As we go through, the current state of the assurance picture was better as we were moving through CP7. We have some challenges around, but we've seen a marked improvement, and we're hoping that as we go through CP7, we get better and better and better. And that's driven by assurance and our governance. Again, the same picture was to be said with renewals. So renewals, we're facing a very challenging picture through CP7 in delivery. And that's broken down across there with, here you can see we've got a breakdown of different sort of types of renewal, and then where we sit in a ranked performance status across the board with each region. So some regions are doing better than others, but this helps us to challenge more with maintenance, because obviously we have an already constrained renewals picture that we're sort of delivering, but as that renewals picture doesn't appear, or we have shortfalls in our renewals, and that then leans on more pressure onto our maintenance colleagues. As you all know, there's nothing worse to track maintenance engineer than a deferred renewal, and how you manage that. You was promised something, it didn't materialize, and now you're left carrying the baby that is quite often screaming at you with all sorts of bad symptoms of bad track. So we're very keen to sort of challenge the renewals that we do have to happen, and we're working quite well on a quarterly basis to help challenge those renewals pictures, so that when maintenance engineers are told something's going to be changed, it gets changed out. So our next steps. So what we want to do is we're helping the asset to help the customer through business planning. So we're really keen on driving improvements to our business planning in order to improve the asset that we're handing to the customer. We fundamentally believe that actually as we're getting better with what we're doing with tracking, plan versus actuals, and our engineering access statement, we can hand a better asset to the customer if we can get DUs to look further on out, and to get past that 5-day firefight, plan further on out, they will improve the asset, and they will improve the customer experience. We're also running some reports that are showing, highlighting some issues where we just don't fundamentally believe that DUs have the resources in place in order to hand over that compliance railway. They're doing their best. However, we know that through various reports and mechanisms, we know and understand that there's some DUs have to be resource better. We can take away from some DUs. We think some DUs have got a little bit too much. Some DUs probably haven't got enough. So we're running reports now to help us visualize and understand exactly where those DUs are, that we can sort of alter the balance between resources so that we can help DUs where they're struggling with things like backlog, compliance, and service affecting failures, to help them bridge that gap where other DUs have put in a hell of a lot of resource. We want to build that tripartite relationship between asset, finance, and maintenance as well. So we want to drag people kicking and screaming into rooms to force them to sit down and have that argument to say, you speak to that person with regards to what you need, and Mr. Asset Owner, please, give us some really good forecasts on the decisions that we're making and what that means to the asset. We're really trying to help those frontline engineers by building those relationships between the three. Something that's passionate to me as an ex-team is moving our maintenance backlog metric from a lagging metric to flipping the thinking to it being a leading metric. So we know that work that hasn't done. Traditionally in the railway, we beat people over the head to say that your backlog is far too high. Get out there and get some more work done and get this backlog closed down. But what I'm trying to do is shift the dial so that we take the backlog metric and we say, yes, okay, we understand work's not been done, but why? Is it because that delivery unit just isn't resourced enough to deliver the work it's required to do, or does it mean a bigger thing? Is there a bigger issue there? Also, we've a bit of a later slide in a couple of slides on. We're understanding the relationship between high levels of backlog and non-compliance and service affecting failures, so we can link the two together. We've always had suspicions that a delivery unit that has got high levels of backlog, high levels of non-compliance, also doesn't run a very good training service. But it's been very hard to put those metrics together on a page. But we've done that now. We've been able to sort of extrapolate that data out and demonstrate quite clearly that some of our worst performing delivery units in the country are the ones that have high levels of backlog, high levels of non-compliance, and high levels of the other issues that leads to an asset that isn't performing where it should be. And also as well, on that, the normalization of deviance that we've seen around the industry with regards to the maintenance backlog as well. So we seem to have this strange feeling at the moment around Network Rail that we're very comfortable sitting at a fairly high backlog number. And again, I'll show you that on the next chart. So if we take a look at our backlog picture on the screen, you can see that there's down here, this is a 2-year window of maintenance backlog, and we can see that it's been up and down over the past years, but it has certainly sat at this level off. Now, some people would be happy, well, it's leveling off, it's not getting worse, right? But for me, the way I look at that, I see that as a degree of acceptance, that the bubble that's around that time period there, with, as you can see, all sort of 5 regions of level of maintenance backlog, clearly paints a picture that we've entered CP7 and we've just kind of accepted the norm that the backlog sits at that level. Some are going up, some are going down. If we can see the green line there, that is Wales and Western, they are sort of tailoring down quite nicely. However, if you see Southern are bobbing along, and most of them are sort of bobbing along at that rate of backlog that they've obviously just accepted in maintenance. So I think by understanding that if we accept the premise that there's a normalization of backlog deviation, and we work from that point, and we understand that actually if backlog is a leading metric, not a lagging one, then that would suggest that there's some DUs out there that have really got some issues that we need to get into and understand what those issues are to provide that help and support. That's moving and allocating resource from one DU that has got quite a bit more to another DU that's got a lot less. Then we can do that to try and get that equity balance across DUs, or if that's something else, if that's education, training, other types of resources, machinery, access. It's just about getting in to understand that so we can drive that backlog figure down, which means then that we're delivering and developing a better asset, which means engineers can go home at bed and go to sleep. I've been there, we all know. And also, secondly, it means that when Joe Bloggs gets on the train with his ticket, he gets from A to B a lot better, a lot more comfortable. His cup of tea in his hand, not spilling everywhere, and it's a nice safe journey, which is what we all want. This is the slide I was saying, which we've put together a load of metrics. There's a lot of stuff on this slide. It's a busy slide. It's probably a busier slide than I like, to be honest, to present, but it's quite a good picture. So I always keep it here. So we can see that our sort of 4 DUs, if you was to ask everybody who are the 4 DUs struggling currently in Network Rail, we'd probably suggest Euston, Tottenham, Wessex Inner and Western Central. And why? Well, there's a multiple load of reasons why. As you can see, 2 of those DUs point directly into London in Euston and Tottenham. That obviously has its challenges with regards to access, with regards to the expectations of the train operator and certain resources. But more importantly, what this picture is telling us is that there's a clear link between backlog, the work versus plan percentage, which is how much work is being planned in versus how much work is actually being delivered, and critical non-compliance and service affecting failures. So the service in these 4 DUs is not where we'd like it to be. And we can backwards engineer that and understand that there's high levels of backlog, high levels of non-compliance, and they're really struggling to meet their plan versus actual. So what they're planning to do, they're really struggling to meet it. So we're currently sort of taking a few next steps to this and speak to those DUs and trying to understand at root level what we can do to help them. We've got some regression analysis where we can start to move resources around to help them and to have those mature conversations with some of those DU leads to understand what's going on in order for us to fix it. So this is a slide to say, what are we doing for you for the route? So we've got some more a nice new Power BI dashboard to drill into detail. We're doing some concise assurance to help nudge routes and DUs along. We're working with DUs to help them build a plan, and we're building a new module within one of our standards to really help define that ABP path and what that looks like and the drumbeat. It's really quite strange because in Network Rail, there isn't really, as I said, there's nothing defined or written down really that helps guide you through the whole drumbeat of building a plan, getting that strategic business plan in place. How do you track those plans? How do you track the books? If you think of a small business owner, it's them doing the books on a Friday evening. What you sold versus what you've still got in stock. Nobody's really defined that for maintenance delivery units, and there's some people that do really well, as you'd expect. There's some people that muddle on and figured it out themselves, and they pass that on, or they've developed a process. Some DUs actually they're just not doing it. So we've taken some time to take some learning from getting ready for CP7 to try and put that into a document, which is a new module that sits within Ian's standard steering group, and that will define and tell DUs and instruct DUs exactly how you go away, build a plan, put it into action, and then track it through the course of a control period, whilst also getting ready for the next control period. And there's a link there as well to a Power BI dashboard, which if ever you're struggling to sleep one night, don't reach for the Horlicks. Go and read that dashboard. You'll soon go to sleep. New standard coming to outline drumbeat, as I've just mentioned. The ORR now are commissioning an independent reporter that will be deployed in the coming couple of years to take a look at our processes and whether our maintenance plan fits our access footprint. So another one of those sort of key things that we're looking at is to prove that the maintenance work that's expected by a delivery unit is possible within their access footprint to the asset. So we've got sort of 3 resources we look at. We look at our volumes that we're going to deliver. We look at the people that we need in order to deliver those volumes through ABP, and then we look at the footprint to see whether we've got the access to the assets so that the volumes and the people can be deployed and they can deliver the work that's required. So they're going to be taking a look at that. We're also developing some things to help DUs as well. We're the ask there for DUs to upload their annual plans and also upload 3 years worth of annual plans so they understand the longer term trends of things. And obviously there's my usual call to help to DUs so that if they need any help, I can come along and show them. And that's my last slide, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for bearing with me. And then, you know, is there any questions? I've got question marks moving around on the screen there. For me, who's an absolute technophobe, that's quite an undertaking to get that to work. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Jaden's got.
That was really great, Andy. And funny. Thanks, mate. Jaden.
Evening, Andy. How difficult has it been to get to sort of change the culture of maintenance when it comes from moving to, I guess, reactionary to proactive planning and making sure they can get their plans right? Because I imagine that can be quite a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I think to be honest with this whole process, that is something that I learned more of as a track maintenance engineer. I'd probably, if I had a section manager that was struggling with, say, measuring across them, I'd go along with him. I'd show him how to do it, and I'd put in a bit of explain, demonstrate, imitate, practice, EDIP. So, you know, I'd go along and explain why we measure a crossing and how. I'd demonstrate it to them. I'd get them to do it and then get them to practice, right? And that would be generally, from a track maintenance engineer's perspective, that would be how I would teach somebody to do something. However, that's very hard to do on a national perspective. You can't do that. You haven't got the time to do that. You want to do that. You want to go to a DU and almost build the plan for them to show them what good looks like, but you can't do that. So worked with Ian and Tim Kersley, and what we did was we focused on a well-performing DU in terms of their building of an annual plan and ABP, and we helped them. We put resource in there. We developed this best in class, and then we sold that around the country from a national perspective, so that we could say, okay, we can't help you do, you know, there's 39 delivery units in the United Kingdom. We can't do 39 annual plans. This is what a good annual plan looks like, and this is why. So that's what we tried to do, and we've took that learning now and encapsulated it into the standard so that we can try and drive that continuous improvement through each control period from now on.
Thank you.
No worries.
Brilliant. I think we've got Peter then. Peter.
Andy, great talk. Thank you very much for that. Can you just tell us a little about the attitude of the ORR in regards to unit rates in all of this? Is unit rate still something they're fixated on? And how does that affect the volumes? I'm thinking, for example, in the world of renewals, with more constrained renewals, it's more likely to be that the renewals that are delivered are the ones that are more critical and not necessarily the ones with the best unit rates. And does that feed through into any scrutiny of maintenance unit rates, or are they just particularly concerned about the total amount of volume?
I think it's fair to say, but whilst being politically correct yet scathing in all one sentence, I'll say that the ORR is quite an immature level with regards to maintenance volumes. They understand we do work, but they are fixated on things that really we've accepted from a while ago that we don't fix ourselves on. So I think how Ian and I look at things, we're concerned with hours, so time. So if you said you'd spend 50 hours changing rails, have you delivered those 50 hours of changing rails, or have you done 50 hours somewhere else? Whereas I think before we used to be fixated on volumes, and we used to be fixated on, okay, okay, we accept that you haven't done this amount of changing of clips or nylons, but we know that you've done something else elsewhere. So I think we've come along a journey, and I think ORR really haven't come along that journey. They're quite immature in their thinking around maintenance volume. So what we're hoping is the independent reporter piece will ally their concerns with regards to maintenance volumes and actually demonstrate to them that what we're doing is the right thing to do, and that we're looking in all the right places, we're assuring the right information, and that the process works, and that they need to come along with our way of thinking. We're hoping that their own independent report will say that. Whether it will or not, is the time will tell, but that's what we're hoping. Our thinking is actually really quite mature, and the way Ian and I are looking at things, and other personalities around the business is quite good. It's pointing to some really good information, whether it's a regression analysis that we've been doing this week, whether it's understanding the work done versus backlog and the impact that has on service affecting failures. Really getting to that sort of really mature way of thinking, but we're not seeing the ORR being there yet. And naturally with the ORR, they're very suspicious when we're telling them, don't look there because that's rubbish, look here because that's where we're looking. They're at the level at the moment where they don't really believe us, and that they want to look everywhere in order to find that smoking gun.
Okay, thanks. Could I just ask one other rider? In the mix with renewals and maintenance is refurbishment. Do they look at refurbishment as part of maintenance or as part of their consideration of renewals?
So refurbishment falls under capital expenditure largely. I think when it gets to certain levels of refurbishment, it will tip into capital expenditure. They're not really concerned at the moment with regards to that. I think that's, I do think that's a bit of a crying shame. We know that there's some really good refurb options out there that can buy life to the asset. From a maintenance perspective, they're solely interested in what we're doing, how much of it, and whether it's possible to do in an access window.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Peter. Simon.
Hello, I think I've appeared. So this is my first ever PWI section meeting, so there we go. So here we are. I
hope I've not put you off then, Simon. I hope that's it now. I've listened to Andy
never put me off.
You
might not want me back in the future. That's a different one. I suppose. So part of my current role is overseeing the training of track maintenance engineers and their teams in the professional environment, and not one of them doesn't want to do this. Unfortunately, their time's taken away from engineering, and I'm yet to see anything that's really given the time back to enable engineers to engineer. I think that's part of the challenge as well, is we haven't got that business change to say, actually, you're an engineer by title, let's get you engineering. And so it's lovely doing packages of work like this, but we're still asking the same people to do more and more without taking anything away. So that's that observation. And the other one is, I think internally we're our own worst enemy. Every maintenance engineer I speak to say they want to maintain better, but they're not given the access to do the preventative maintenance to prevent the service affecting failure. So I think, how's that challenge being overcome? That we need to stop saying, no, you can't go and do that fettling because that's going to cost you a few pounds, because we're throwing tens of £1 million away a year in not utilising full asset life, and that's tons of carbon, and they're two measures we don't actually capture anywhere.
No, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Simon, especially the first one. That's really good to hear. And thank you for taking the time to train our TMEs as well. It's a tough job. I've done it for 6 years. in a tough depot, and it's any training that you can get to help better prepare them is fantastic. So thank you for that. I think in terms of your challenges, so for me, I would argue that actually if IMEs and IMDMs had better processes in place in order to track and build their maintenance annual plans along with the IMSMs, that would free up track maintenance engineers to go away and engineer. So what should be happening is a lot of the other components of a very busy maintenance to delivery unit come together to build an annual plan that helps the track maintenance engineer to get the work that they're required to do into the safest possible access footprint. They can't do that though without having those longer term plans in place. If we're going to challenge an engineering access statement, it needs to be done further out with qualitative sort of information. Where is that information? Well, that information is through ABP in your annual plan. If you know that in 3 years' time you are going to be doing a hell of a lot of maintenance on a certain line, that you only get 1 in 6 for your engineering access statement. Well, using that information and that data, you can say, look, I need to get in, I need to do fettling every other week for the foreseeable future in order to deliver a safer line for you, the operator and the customer. And only really do that with longer term discussions. And in order for us to have those longer term discussions, we need to have a longer term plan in place. So I think it's about us not going straight to the TMEs and saying, right, sit down, give me your tamping plan. It's about us going to other elements of the delivery unit and say, these guys are really busy, have a quick chat with them to understand what their needs, wants and requirements, and get that in a bloody long-term plan so that you can go to the customer and hold their feet to the fire over the expectations of and the requirements of the delivery unit.
Brilliant, thank you.
Cheers.
Brilliant. Anybody else got any more questions or want to pop one in the chat and I'll ask for it? Oh yeah. No, don't look like Andy.
I'll have a quick question.
Very comprehensive. Oh, go on, dude.
Go on then,
Simon.
Andrew. If you want to message me separately, I don't know if you want to do it on the call because it's probably a bit sensitive. Have you got the examples of good practice? It'd be lovely to hear where it is going well, because potentially we can invite those into the training environment and they can speak about how have they been successful and how they sustain that success as well.
Yeah, so Northwest route we're really good. There were all the way through the process in getting ready for CP7. Northwest route were very good at having a handle on the whole ABP thing and what it meant and how that was built. And Amelia Routledge up there is the IMDM for Lancs and Cumbria. She had a quite a good handle on what was going on. They were consistently good through the process. Scotland were pulled the rabbit out the hat late on in the process. So although they were led quite heavily by finance, I think it's fair to say, they still produced quite a good plan towards the back end of it. So there are those patches of good stuff, and it was quite late on in the process. So we started off at a very poor point, but got quite good towards the end of it. And actually, it's got to be said, Central, my old route, Central, so there's sort of the Samuel and Dudley and the Saltley area. I gave them an absolute kick in through the assurance process early on, and that meant that they come on board. They said, look, okay, you give us a kick in. We're not gonna cry about it too much. What do we need to do in order to improve? And I went through it with them, and they helped them to understand where they were going right, where they were going wrong, and they did some really good work in getting ready for that. And a large part of that was understanding that the PRE teams understood that they owned the asset, and that actually that they needed to own the process of building the plan, and also building the plan versus actuals, and working with delivery units in order to build a credible plan around that. And I think that when that penny dropped with them, all of a sudden you could see a betterment in their assurance scores, and they understood they got the right people in the room. It wasn't the busy TMEs, section managers, and sort of even some of the signaling maintenance engineers can be busy at some point. Not even, it wasn't getting them in the room. It was getting the IMDMs, the area services managers, and the PREs to look at the asset and understand what it needed and what they could deliver. And when that penny dropped for Central, their scores went up significantly, and they were really good.
Great. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. I think it's true to say Andy's, been instrumental in making sure engineers are getting what they need, and that's the money, the access, the resources to deliver. So it's really great. So thanks, Andy. That was a really great talk. Oh, I have got one question by the looks of it. New technology. The question is, Andy, product acceptance process. Period of time to take, unaware. Is there anything that could be done to speed up this?
Touching on the
new technology.
Enemy, lots of maintenance engineers are keen to utilise new technologies, but the product acceptance process takes a substantial period of time, and I think most are unaware of the progress being made. Is there anything that could be done to speed up this process and increase visibility? And I think I completely agree with the statement made. Absolutely, for me, product acceptance holds us back. If we take a look at it, it's a barrier to providing solution. So yes, I do agree that when we're designing and developing a new gauge, there has to be a product acceptance process put in place. But I do think that if we understand the scale and the rate of technology and how it's advanced, absolutely, our product acceptance at Network Rail is not fleet of foot enough in order to take a technology that's going to provide a solution, get it out to the front line and allow them to work with it. I know that from being, even when I was a TME years ago, I could see, you wanted to use something, you bloody well couldn't because it didn't have a PA certificate to it. So you daren't, drop it onto the rail because you'd be hung, drawn and quartered within a couple of weeks. But I think the challenge is that I think Network Rail understands that challenge, and we are driving improvements to the product acceptance process. We've just gone through the last stages of the MMT train, the mobile maintenance train, product acceptance. I mean, that is a different talk in itself, really, with regards to how we did that. That 10 years it took us to get product acceptance. That some would say it needed 10 years, but 10 years is a long time. Technology comes and goes in a heartbeat, and I absolutely agree that we need to be getting better at our product acceptance.
If there are no more questions,
can I ask? I'm sorry. I'm gonna. It's Andy. I've loved the talk. I'm sort of picking your brain. I'll probably pick up with you another time. But if you were to jump in a time machine to the day you got told you were standing up into your TME role, what's the one thing you would like to tell yourself?
God, don't do it. No. TME is a great job. It's a great job, and it's an even better job when you're in the trenches and you're in a DU that allows you to sort of engineer and get on with it. And I had that with Saltley. Saltley was, it's an inner city Birmingham delivery unit. It's warts and all. You are going in, you're fixing the track, you're putting it back together and putting it in place. I think what I tell myself is, don't sweat the small stuff so much, and probably take a bit of time out where you can, even if it's every other week, to have an hour or two where you can think about a little bit of strategy and a longer term planning. And by longer term planning, I mean, sort of 3 or 4 months out, because that's how busy it can be for a track maintenance engineer. And just don't beat yourself up too much about it, because you're holding a baton, aren't you? You're a TME, you think the whole world rests on your shoulders, but essentially you're holding that baton. You put a level of improvement in place and you pass it on to another person, and I did that, and that other person's doing fantastically well with it, and so other people will do their little bit as well. So yeah, don't sweat the small stuff, and don't be scared to reach out to senior people in the organisation. I would never have dreamt of picking up the phone to Ian as the head of maintenance and asking him a question, because Like, why would he want to spend time with a spotty-nosed TME in Saltley? But actually, now I've worked with Ian, I probably should have done that a lot more. And there's a lot of TMEs out there that probably think the same way as I did. Pick the phone up, speak to senior people, and ask them what they think.
Yeah, we're here to help. Yeah.
Mm.
Thanks, Simon. We have to bring the meeting to a close there. Thanks. So I'll just hand over to Jaden who'll do the vote of thanks. Thank you, Jaden.
Right, first of all, thank you for that presentation, Andy. If we can start on your Power BI dashboard, it definitely looks like a really good bit of kit. And honestly, I ran out of Horlicks yesterday, so I know what my evening's going to look like.
Good stuff.
Considering how the relationship with the RR can be really difficult, them being a regulator and us being regulated, it's good to see we've got a team to strike a good balance between improving our outputs and making the RR happier with what we give them. So I really appreciate that work you're doing this. Thank you.
No worries,
And
thank you.
the work that you've put into like sort of helping maintenance move their culture forward is immense. Long-term planning of a reactionary maintenance work is the mindset we need to move into. And it's really hard to do when you've got so many fires to fight. So thank you for helping with that. And I can see that your experience as a TME has really highlighted what needs to be focused on going forward. And the only way we're really going to get through this control period, considering our financial constraints with reduced renewals, is to improve maintenance planning. So once again, thank you. If we can do a virtual round of applause for Andy, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jaden. No, that was really, really good, Andy. Thanks all the claps go in there. So we've got another talk in 4 weeks' time. So and the calendar's filling up nicely. So we should have lots of exciting talks to go through the rest of the year. So thank you all. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you in 4 weeks.
Cheers,
Cheers
guys.
all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.